I don't know whether I am an expert. I spent some time working on invasive alien species and also on several other topics like forest fungi. But in the end, maybe I've been working on invasive alien species since 1995, uh, amply supported by CABI to begin with. I may take a little more time because invasive alien species, talking on that may take and spend the whole day talking on invasive alien species, but the time is limited here. So let me start with those who do not know what IPBES is. IPBES is Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. 143 countries joined this initiative. We provide the best available evidence, critical analysis, and options to all who wish to address the issue of invasive alien species, especially the policy makers. I don't think I need to tell you about what invasive alien species are. There are alien species, some of them are invasive species, and there are two terms which you may confuse. One is biological invasions, and the other is invasive alien species. Biological invasions is the process. Invasive alien species is the species itself. So let me start. So I was involved in drafting Chapter 5 in the thematic assessment of invasive alien species in the IPBES. I was leading that, and I had Evangelina from Argentina and Andy Shepherd from CSIR Australia as coordinating lead authors. There were several lead authors and then other authors as well from different parts of the world. This is the first comprehensive global assessment of invasive alien species and the control. And we included a multidisciplinary team of 85 experts and 200 contributing authors from 47 countries across all regions. And the report was developed over 4 years, and we have reviewed over 13,000 documents, which included, say, in different languages. And we engaged with the indigenous and local knowledge people, indigenous people especially, collecting information what the indigenous people know about managing invasive alien species. And there were 3 external reviews which involved different countries. India was involved, not part of that. As you know, people and nature are threatened by invasive alien species in all regions of Earth. No part is left out. Even Antarctica is invaded by invasive alien species. And our report shows that there are 37,000 established alien species which were introduced by human activities worldwide, and 200 new alien species are added to it every year. Of these, 3,500 are invasive alien species which have negative impacts on nature and people. And of the invasive alien species, 6% are plants, 22% invertebrates, 14% vertebrates, and 11% are microbes. And I must tell you that IAS are one of the 5 most important drivers of biodiversity loss. And they have contributed 60% of global species extinctions of animals and plants, and many local extinctions. Of these, 16% of the extinctions are caused by invasive alien species alone. We should tell you that threats from biological invasions are increasing markedly in all regions of Earth and expected to continue increasing in the future. And as you can see from this graph, light blue color is shown for Asia Pacific. It's shown from 1500 to 2015. And on the say left-hand side, you can see the number of different invasive alien species like mammals, birds, fishes, insects, crustaceans, mollusks like that. You can note that in the Asia Pacific, invasion by vascular plants are the highest compared to the other regions of the earth. And say fungi shown to be the highest in Europe and Central Asia. But I don't agree with this because this is based on partial information. We have a lot of data gaps, especially in the Asia Pacific, on fishes, mollusks, fungi, microbes include bacteria, and invertebrates. So this is what we could collect from the literature that we got. This is not the entire truth, I must tell you. That needs a lot of data, which is yet to be collected from, especially from Asia Pacific and Africa. And as per the report, 34% of impacts of invasive alien species are from America, 31% from Europe and Central Asia, 25% from Asia and the Pacific, 7% from Africa, which cannot be true because information that we could collect from Africa was very scarce. There is no information, or even if the information is available, it's not in English or any language which we can read. So, this is not the final story, but this is what we got from the literature that we have collected. And I must tell you that of the 10 most widespread invasive species, 8 are found in India. They are water hyacinth, lantana, lucina, brown rat, castor bean, Ailanthus altissima, Robinia pseudoacacia, and Chromalina. So that's an important point to note. 8 of the most widespread worldwide invasive alien species are found in India. And Asia has the highest number of invasive mammals. So these are the key messages from the assessment. Invasive alien species are a major threat to nature, nature's contribution to people, and good quality of life across the globe. Globally, the number of invasive alien species and their impacts are increasing rapidly and are predicted to continue rising in the future. The prediction is that there will be 36% of increase in alien species by 2050 compared to 2005 if we do not act now. So this is because of the accelerating global economy, intensive changes in land and sea use, and demographic change. And of the invasive alien species recorded, 75% are recorded from the terrestrial realm, 14% from freshwater, and 10% from the marine realm. However, the good news is that these invasive alien species can be prevented and mitigated through effective management. That's what we have concluded in the report. And this requires stakeholder involvement and integrated governance while applying the management actions. So as I told you, it's possible. Yes, we can manage them. There are 3 main options to choose in the management, in management. The first is when an IAS, a potential threat is absent in India, wherever it is. So the best method of management will be prevention through pathway management. However, if the IAS has already spread And before it establishes, we must go for species-based management at a local or landscape level, which includes surveillance, preparedness like horizon scanning, risk analysis, etc. Early detection. It's very easy if you detect the invasive alien species early, and we can go for rapid response. We can control them. We can eradicate them. And the next is eradication. Physical and chemical methods are available for eradication. And the third scenario is when a species is already spread. What shall we do? The two main options, one is containment through physical, chemical and biological methods. We will not permit the species to spread further. And then control, of course, what we practice in India, we used to go for control because prevention doesn't work for us. Eradication, I don't think we have attempted any. Containment, we have not heard at all. So control is the main method that we used to follow in India by farmers, agriculturists, forest people, etc. And these could be physical methods, which is the most that we practice, chemical methods also, especially by farmers, and biological control. I don't think we have accepted this a good method of control for fear of off-target impacts. And suppose a species is widespread, then we will go for site or ecosystem-based management. Adaptive management means we use all methods to manage, to wipe out a species, and we will go for restoring the ecosystem. And I must tell you that species and site-based management measures are successful and cost-effective in terrestrial and closed water systems. And prevention is the only effective management method in marine systems. We cannot go for containment, control, nothing of that sort in marine ecosystems because it's vast. We cannot conduct it, we cannot do that. And eradication is always successful when the spread of the species is limited. If it is only in a small area, we can eradicate it. The most cost-effective and successful option for managing invasive alien species in all ecosystems is prevention. We prevent the species not to occur, not to enter our territory. In terrestrial and closed water systems, the pathways are through animal and plant trade, agriculture and horticulture commodities, pet trade and wood packaging. These not all. And in marine open water systems, entry of invasive alien species through ballast water and hull biofouling. Nearly 70% of the invasions are through biofouling. Pathway management, if applied to international pathways, can succeed if pre-border quarantine, import control, and border biosecurity measures are scrupulously enforced, which we normally used not to do. And of course, phytosanitary treatment of imported commodities, not only imported commodities, exported commodities also, and active and general surveillance for early detection. We must detect it before it spreads. And risk assessment, we must conduct risk assessment before we plan to introduce a species to our country. These are all keys to success of prevention measures. Post-border, domestic pathways, we must entrust our state authorities to check any species which is invasive, not to spread to the other state. This is not well practiced in India, I am afraid. So if it occurs in Rajasthan, it will go to Kerala within no time. Adoption of international legislation, that's the most important thing. We must follow the IPBES guidelines. And we must conduct risk analysis before we plan to introduce a species. So effective prevention requires adequate and sustained funding, capacity building. The officers who conduct biosecurity measures need to be trained in that. Technical and scientific cooperation is needed. transfer of technology, monitoring, and relevant appropriate biosecurity legislation and enforcement. Our biosecurity regulations in India are, I think, outdated. It need be improved, and modern techniques need be incorporated into the present biosecurity legislation. However, across the globe, prevention treatments for planes and ships are widely applied. Treatment of ballast water and biofouling, and the chemical fumigation for cargo whenever it reaches through a ship, wooden pallets when we import or export, and cardboard packaging. These are all widely practiced. The only difference is that the chemicals that we use to fumigate are different. India follows a particular chemical for such a long time. There is no improvement in that. That will not stop all the invasive alien species. And pathway surveillance, there are many tools and techniques which include digital data mining, crowdsourcing, sensor networks and smart traps, screening technologies at airports, X-ray screening of commodities, environmental DNA. We need only a small sample, especially used in marine systems, and sentinel surveillance and monitoring, which is not widely practiced in our country, but that's required. In our airports, I'm afraid that we never used to check for any plants, seeds, or animal parts which are being brought by passengers. But whereas in developed countries, especially in USA, New Zealand, and Australia, they will check our baggage thoroughly to see that we are not carrying any invasive alien species to our baggage. Preparedness, we keep prepared. We know that an invasive alien species is about to enter our country, then we get prepared. And this is an option we often practice when prevention fails, to detect the invasive alien species early and then act as soon as possible, if possible, at the airport itself. And these are effective in preventing invasive alien species invasion in terrestrial closed water systems. Often it's crucial in marine and connected water systems also. Horizon scanning is used, and risk analysis is conducted, and these are some of the tools to identify and prioritize emerging IAS. As I told you earlier, early detection of IAS enables quick intervention and eradication. We need general surveillance using citizen science, sentinel sites, and remote sensing to identify new and emerging invasive alien species which help preparedness. Coming to the second, species-based management at local and scale level, there are several modern techniques now. Citizen science, of course, we are using it in India. Earth observation, volatile detection technologies, pheromones and other lures, ultrasound and acoustic surveillance devices, track and trace next generation sequencing, and meta-barcoding. I'm not going to details of that, that may take time. But some of these methods are currently being used in India, and we may use more. Eradication, that's an excellent tool. If prevention fails, we must go for eradication. There are about 1,500 examples of eradication of IAS on about 1,000 islands. It's very easy in islands compared to larger land masses. For example, in French Polynesia, black rats, cats, rabbits, and goats were eradicated using different methods. That's one of the very successful examples. Eradication of plants is difficult because of the soil seed bank. The seeds may remain in the soil viable maybe for 7-10 years. For example, Mycenia seeds may remain in soil for 7 years. Mimosa diplotrica more than that, 15 years. So unless we go for removing them, it's not easy to do that. Say eradication may not work. But if a species is very limited in an area, which myself and my colleague Dr. Sujanapal did in Maldives, where we saw lantana in a small area, we pulled them and removed. Other invasive alien species will not, like Mycena, will not grow in Maldives where the soil is calcareous. Fortunately, because it's very easy to spread from Kerala. Mycena, Chromilia, lantana, all can easily cross over. It's very close by. So lantana also, it's not spreading. It's in a small area. So we plucked and removed. And the invasive alien species Maldives, he has published a book and is working on a flora of Maldives. So it's quite different from the invasive alien species which we have the Indian mainland. Large-scale eradication of invasive aliens is not possible or feasible for various reasons. And the most important thing is that if the eradication is to succeed, we must need the help of the stakeholders. They need to be engaged. They need to be told about what we are planning to do, and their cooperation is a must. And eradication in marine ecosystems is difficult because of vastness. We cannot eradicate any species unless it's in a small area, in a bay or so. Containment, this is something which we heard a lot about, but there are very rare occasions when we can contain a species. And this is the next option. When eradication fails, containment is the only option. And we can use physical, chemical and biological methods in terrestrial and closed water systems. And we mean to contain the species in a small area. We will not allow it to spread. That is the basis of containment. This is mostly used to contain invasive alien plants, but slowing the spread is also an option to manage invasive. One main example is gypsy moth in Australia, where it was contained in I think in a 5-kilometer area. It did not spread from it further. And of course, as for any other invasive management method, it requires funds. And especially for containment, the propagule pressure may be reduced in the zone dominated by the species and in the buffer zone also. Then comes control. This is the most common method that we practice in India, especially by farmers. Physical methods. It includes a lot of methods, say like uprooting, manual pulling, mowing, plowing, several of them. Debarking of trees, which we recently found, which was very successful in controlling the Senna spectabilis population in Kerala. KFRA developed that technique. By debarking the tree, we can control Senna invasion. And for Mycenia, lantana, Chromalina, we go for manual pulling and uprooting. But no use because there is a soil seed bank there. And why we are not following physical methods is just because it is not only short-term efficacy. For Mycenia, we will have to do it every 3 months. And cost effectiveness, there is no money for the forest department to remove Mycenia from the forest ecosystems every 3 months. So it will start to grow. And the need for frequent application, as I told you, and sustained control may not be possible. And there is one example, couple of examples where it was really successful to control invasive rabbits in Australia. Mechanical control was more effective than viral treatment of rabbit. They used to use that also. They used to poison rabbits, or they use viruses which can control rabbits. Chemical methods, I need not tell you. You are all very well informed of using pesticides and herbicides. This is the most commonly used method in India, especially by farmers. We need not tell them. they'll go for using that. And controlling mycenia, they have used even, say, I must tell you that they have been using Roundup, 2,4-D, so many other herbicides. But poor social acceptability is a concern, but who is? Environmentalists are concerned. Farmers are not concerned because they want that product. Short-term control, we will have to apply, we will have to go on applying it, and non-target impacts. While applying, they will not take care whether they are applying it in a very near to a water body. If there is a well there, they don't care. So that can cause harm to health, environmental risks. So the use of pesticides in invaded natural ecosystems should be highly regulated. Are we doing anything? Other methods of control are robotic technology, which is used to map and characterize invasive alien species and to apply a management action. Lethal control of invasive alien vertebrates. Shooting is very commonly practiced to kill wild horses in Australia. Shoot them. Culling and lethal baiting, which we are not using in India. And fertility control for invasive alien vertebrates. This is to decrease or stabilize a pest animal population by reducing or halting reproduction by various methods. This applies to kill rodents, horses, deer, kangaroos, and canines, but generally still at a very localized scale. We are not using any of these techniques in India, we are yet to use them. And then comes classical biological control. The most dependable, benign, and a sure shot, a silver bullet, especially to manage invasive alien plants. It's 100 years of history, effective management tool, especially for plants and invertebrates. It aims to release a host-specific natural enemy from the native place of the species and then bring it to wherever the species is an invasive and release it. I can cite one example of Mycenia micrantha, where we introduced a pathogen, Puccinias spegasini, for the first time in India. The pathogen is very common on plants in South America, in different countries, in North America also, in say in Ecuador, Peru, Argentina, Brazil. So we found that the pathogen is killing Mycenia population through infection on leaf, petiole, and thus the population of Mycenia is very controlled in those countries. So we brought the pathogen, namely rust. Rust is very host specific, and we have 15 Puccinias species tested on 15 members of Astraceae, all successful across the globe. And then we released in India. For some reason or the other, it didn't work, but it's working beautifully in Papua New Guinea, Fiji, Taiwan, and some of the Pacific Islands also, other Pacific Islands also. So CBC, or classical biological control, involves in releasing biotrophic fungi, viruses, invertebrate predators, and herbivorous invertebrate for different types of invasive alien species. In India, we have introduced several insects to control Lantana camera, Chromalina odorata, and the only successful case of introducing an insect to a beetle to control is on Parthenium strophoros, Zygogramma bicolorata. That's the only one to quote. So although we introduced several of them, and the Puccinia was the first and the only fungus that we introduced so far. There are other methods also: sterile insect technique, mass release of infertile males, viral biological control of vertebrates, rabbit population, as I told you, in Australia and New Zealand, they are using it. RNA interference used to selectively inactivate genes and then genetic control approaches, including gene trial, that should reduce the fitness or success of a species in its invaded environment. The aim is to force the population towards one sex, mostly male. And if it is complete, then the population of that insect becomes extinct. It's normally used to manage mosquitoes and rodents. Then comes site-based management methods. This is the common method that we use to control IAS, to suppress the long-term impacts of species on biodiversity and ecological assets at that location, and it integrates species suppression through adaptive management, using a combination of chemical and biological methods, integrated management, I must say. So we use, because it is site-based, ecosystem-based management, we use all sorts of methods to see that the species is rooted out. And then we go for ecosystem restoration. In the case of plants, we go for active restoration by planting fast-growing native species in the area. And the only thing is that once we do that, we will not go for frequent surveillance, frequent, say, checking whether the species, the invasive species is coming back, or the native species that we planted is growing. So once, in the case of plants, when there is the canopy is closed, there is less chance the invasive plants can emerge. So that's the idea. And you may have noticed that in natural forests where the canopy is closed, none of the invasive alien species will enter. Anything, say Lucina, Chromalina, Mycenia, it cannot grow. So that's one technique. And then, say, if I can say something else, you may have seen that there is a lot of man-wildlife conflict in Kerala. Yesterday also, a man was killed by elephant. There are several such cases for the last month. Maybe 30, 40 people were killed mostly by wild elephants and then tigers. One main reason for this is that there is nothing in the forest for the elephants to eat. It's all lantana. If you go to Mudumalai Wildlife Sanctuary, it's all lantana there, nothing else. So there is nothing for them to eat. So the herbivores go entering the farmers' fields to feed on whatever they grow, and the carnivores follow. This is what is happening. This is not the only reason. This is one of the main reasons for the man-wildlife conflict. It's not only in India, in Kerala, across the stakeholder engagement. As I told you, we need to engage everybody, even the indigenous people, in all our management actions. And the knowledge, practices, values and customary governance system of indigenous people and local communities can improve management outcomes, because they will have their own methods to manage. We don't know about that. If we can incorporate those methods in our common management techniques, it can work more effectively. The success will be much more. And we need an integrated governance approach. We need collaboration, cooperation, and say across, not only within the country, international collaborations required. And one of the main problems that we see in India is that we don't know who to be approached, who is to act, whether it's the forest department, whether it's agriculture department. Nobody takes the responsibility to act. This is one reason. So we need a governance approach. We need line up everybody. We need to entrust them responsibilities, so that you need to act A, B, C, like that. So if that is there is a good governance approach, management is much more easier. So our challenges in managing biological invasions are: we lack an exclusive policy and legislation to manage invasive alien species in In, in India, like in most other developing countries, this is one of the main hurdle. And we, of course, 80% of the countries that we surveyed have the target for biological invasions within their National Biodiversity Action Plan. It's all written there, black and white, but nobody's implementing anything. And mind you, 83% of countries do not have a national legislation or regulations for prevention and control of invasive alien species. Nearly half of all countries do not invest, they will not spend even a single penny in managing invasive species. And some of the countries lack authentic checklist. I've been working in the Asia Pacific for the last maybe 10-15 years as a consultant of the FAO and as a coordinator of the invasive Asia Pacific Invasive Species Network. And I helped Cambodia, Bhutan, and Vietnam to prepare the first checklist of invasive alien plants. And lack of awareness of the negative impacts for it. Most of the people, our farmers, they cite a plant which they have not seen earlier, and they just ignore it, or they don't know who to consult to identify it. We don't have the capacity like the developing country people and capability to implement all the modern management techniques. The scarcity resources, we don't devote funds for management, and we don't have exposure to modern tools and techniques which are developed and being practiced for a long time by the developed countries. And gaps in data and knowledge, especially in Asia and Africa. I cannot say that our data, although we did a lot of work on invasive alien plants, that data is not yet complete. My good friend Ansar has spent a lot of time, I think maybe more than 20 years of his lifetime working on invasive alien plants. And then say, we don't know anything about invasive fungi, microbes. There are a lot of data gaps in invasive invertebrates. So these are to be filled, and we need money for that. We need people to work on that. Without information, we cannot go for management. And difference in perception, including conflicting interests and values for the importance are just a threat of IAS. And some of the countries are reluctant to practice classical biological control. I've experienced, I've been working in Nepal as a consultant of the FAO. They were very reluctant to introduce Puccinia spegasini, even though mycenia is a big problem in Nepal. They were not ready. In Vietnam, in Indonesia, they are not ready to accept classical biological control because of the fear for non-target effects. And ethical issues, of course, if we are planning to kill animals through virus, shooting or whatever. So, in a nutshell, we have found that there is compelling evidence for immediate and sustained action. And with sufficient resources and long-term commitment, preventing and controlling invasive alien species are attainable goals that will yield significant long-term benefits for people and nature. We can do this, provided we have the resources, we have the mentality to act, and we act. Thank you.